For those of you who don't know, my name is Michaela Club, and I am the program director here at the BrandLab, and excited just to be with you today. And we'll be joined by my co-presenters, our CEO, Kelly Williams, and also Sarah Buckley, who is joining us and has been on this journey as we've been creating this beautiful report to share with you all today on this presentation. And then also a big shout out to Fusion Hill, who was pivotal in getting all this research and supporting us in this whole process as well. So let's jump right in. Today, we're going to really discuss the insights that we gained, what this means to the BrandLab, the things that we learned along the way, and then ultimately the actions that you can take as individuals and that we can take collectively together to continue to make a meaningful impact. So along with our programs and our fearless work, the State of the Industry report for us here at the BrandLab is just another way that we try to add value and drive change within the marketing and advertising profession. Our mission and vision is to change the voice and face of the marketing and advertising industry or profession. And while we started that work here in the Twin Cities, it's certainly grown across the Midwest. And we are using this report really to elevate those BIPOC voices and hear their truth. So the folks that we reached out to and are a part of this report and a part of the survey. So in this report, you're going to get a chance to hear what we like to call the new majority, a lot of voices that might not have been heard in the workplace or have maybe felt comfortable or safe enough to share their truth in the same way as they did on the survey. So this year, we really took a bigger step into qualitative insights and not just the hard data, but really wanting to hear from BIPOC voices and found that we were getting a big response you might hear things that you might not hear in other research. So a little bit of background about the state of the industry. This is a report that launched almost 10 years ago in 2014, and it's a biannual report that we release here at the BrandLab. So those past reports are available over at our website. So check out this year's, check out past years. But previous years were really focused on reaching out to our HR partners. A lot of it was focusing on just targeting the HR departments and our contacts over there to, like I said, get more of that hard data of what was happening in the industry. But this year we took a shift and really leaned into doing things differently with a much larger outreach and focus on both the quantitative and qualitative data. So these reports are gathered primarily across the Midwest, so the regions that the BrandLab serves of Milwaukee, Kansas City, and the Twin Cities region. We launched the survey back in May and closed things around June. So what is the current state of the industry? What are we measuring against? So this data actually comes from DEED. It is just a good kind of level set of the powerful information about the kind of current state of those regions that I mentioned, right? So here you see a nice visual of the total population that identifies as BIPOC, and then the difference of who within the marketing and advertising profession identifies as BIPOC as well. So just want you all to kind of keep that in mind as we continue to move through these next few slides and thinking about kind of currently what things look like in this landscape. And so a little bit more about who replied to the survey. We were really excited to have a huge amount of respondents with over 1,000 participants and with 700 of them completing that survey all the way. This is kind of the largest response that we've ever had. And what we noticed was that there was a real large increase in our BIPOC respondents, which reinforces the BrandLab's connection to a place that they feel safe to share their truth. Like I mentioned before, sometimes you send out those surveys internally, but you might not get the rich responses that you're looking for. And so what we found was a lot of folks felt safe to share with us. And we were really honored by that. So you can see the graphic breakdown here of who engaged with us. And we collected both organization-wide demographic data and also individual employee responses. So really going beyond just the HR department. We had amazing engagement and we're really grateful for everyone who took that time to share and fill that survey out. So excited to bring Sarah on to share a little bit more about what we've learned as we digested all that information and identified some key insights. So Sarah, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Kelly, for letting me be part of this. Thank you to all the Barkley folks who have joined the call to support me. As we kick off this part, I just wanted to take a moment. I am filled with excitement, but also energy that's a little bit hard to explain. It's energy for the urgency this report gives me, and importance that I hope everyone here will hear what we're learning and be able to take action with it. And I know we're going to talk about that at the end. And as we get started, I just want everybody to kind of take a breath and remember why you got into this industry and the things that you hoped would accomplish. And it's possible that, like me, some of what you thought about when you thought about getting into this industry is that I want to go to a place where I can do the thing that I happen to have a talent in doing. I want to do it in a place filled with other people who energize and excite me. And I want to try to make an impact on the world. I want to hope that I can use my talent to make some kind of an impact on the world. And that's what has fueled me to get into it. And folks, we're not there yet. We are not creating that kind of a world for everyone in our little industry. And so as we go over these insights, have that frame of mind of we want it to be really good. We are very lucky to work in an incredibly exciting industry where we get to be creative, but we haven't yet made it to the place that it feels that way for everybody. So I'm going to go into this. My job here is to go through these 5 key insights. We're going to talk about some of the data points. We're also going to share some poll quotes from some of the folks who participated in the survey that help give context to this. So thank you, team at BrandLab. Thank you, Fusion Hill, for these amazing insights. Let's get into those. All right, so the 5 insights that are kind of the powerful takeaways from this amazing set of data are this. 1, our industry is not nearly as diverse as the general population. And while our world continues to change, while our US demographics continue to change, this industry is stagnant. And that then leads to some other things. So because of that, we also see that the BIPOC and white employees are having very different lived experiences inside of our agencies, inside of the workplace. And because those experiences are so different, we're not creating an inclusive environment. Third, the lack of BIPOC representation at the leadership level is creating a big impact on the workplace culture. Kind of makes sense. But that lack of leadership is perpetuating the difference in those lived experiences. Fourth, there's still a gap between the positive intent of the organization and the actual impact on the employees, especially on the BIPOC employees. And then finally, that difference in the lived experiences of the BIPOC employees and the white employees, and paired with the slow growth of diversity in our workforce, is weakening our overall ability to create work that represents the consumer population. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but that's kind of the overall story of where we are right now. That's what the data is telling us. And let's dive into those a little more. And I want you to keep the faith, though, because after we go through this data, we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do together to continue this journey, to take the energy that I feel right now, that you probably all feel, and turn it into positive action. All right, here we go. Okay, so the first part of that insight is that we're not nearly as diverse as the general population. I just want to take a moment and help contextualize that for a lot of us, that in the words of one of the participants from the survey, sometimes imposter syndrome sets in, and the majority of my team is predominantly white. So the homogeneous thinking can and has happened. A combination of those 2 things make me feel uncomfortable to be my full self at work, especially in a virtual setting. So that's from some of the, one of the BIPOC participants in the survey shared that with us, that feeling that they don't really fit in and they don't want to bring their whole self to work. So a little bit deeper dive into that data. So we saw it in the numbers overall. And while our US population is becoming more diverse, we just are not making that progress in marketing and advertising, and specifically in the markets where we are located. So we looked even in Twin Cities, in Kansas City, in Milwaukee, and those low numbers, that is just the reality right now, is we just still have a lot of work to do. So I think what we can do with this is understand the facts. The facts are what they are. That is the data. That data colors the rest of the insights. And while we have work to do on just improving overall the stagnation and changing that, and I know we can do it because we all have the right energy, as we are doing that work, I want to make sure that we think about the 4 next things that come with that, because while we're doing the big work of changing the overall makeup of our industry, we can focus on the right now lived experiences that are happening within our companies. All right, Michaela, I forgot to say this at the beginning. If at any point I don't hit something, please feel free to jump in. You know, this is so much work has gone into this, and I do feel so much, and sometimes I get a little caught up in it. So if I hit of our talking points, feel free to jump in. All right. So the second key point, we just talked about this, but because of that disparity in the overall makeup of the company, the actual lived experience inside the company is very, very different. So one of the big findings from the report is that 42% of BIPOC respondents strongly agree they feel comfortable being their whole selves at work. So that's not a lot. And similarly, only 52% of white respondents feel they can bring their whole self. So this is a problem. It's a problem in our BIPOC folks and employees don't feel they can bring their whole self to work, but not anyone is right now. So this disparity is creating a problem with people not being able to bring their whole self to work. And you guys, I don't know about you, but what we do is creative work. It takes lots of parts of us. I would say all the parts of us to be able to come to the table, to be able to vulnerably share creative ideas, to be able to push on each other, to be able to argue over ideas, over things that don't have a right answer. We're not solving math equations that have an exact answer. We are creating art. We're using that side of our brain. And so that need to be able to bring our whole selves, it doesn't just make it better for the employee, it makes it better for our industry. It makes it better for the work that we put out into the world. So I think just sitting with this understanding that we're not there, we haven't created those inclusive environments, is important to know. And here's another contextualizing this, bringing it to life with a quote from someone in one of the participants in our survey. So just again, imagine how this feels. Being the only person of color on a team can bring certain challenges. So it's not always easy to bring your whole self to work when that whole self looks and feels so different than everyone around you. That's a reality. And we've got rooms, and I'm saying rooms, we've got virtual rooms, we've got rooms in person where we want people to be able to bring that. So we have work to do on making sure everyone feels included, and that they can bring that whole self to the work that we do in this industry. I guess I would say, if any industry needs you to bring your whole self, I think it is one that is all about creativity and collaboration and working together. Okay, Michaela, are we tracking good? All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the disparity in representation at certain levels. So overall, we know that we're not there with the overall numbers, right? Even a little bit more alarming or more alarming is where that representation happens. So what we're seeing is in the numbers in this report is that we have much more concentration or much more diversity in lower seniority positions, but as you go up in level, we're seeing less representation. So less representation at the top can lead to less feelings of inclusion, can lead to less things happening in the overall company. So specifically in our survey responses, in ours, 44% of the respondents were in entry-level roles compared to 15% in executive-level roles. One other thing that I think is really important here is the urgency that the BIPOC partners feel, employees feel, for the needs, how important it is to create a diverse workforce. So just think about that for a minute. So we have less representation across the board. We have even less at more senior levels, but we have an even higher feeling of how important it is to create a diverse workforce. Everyone feels it's pretty important, but our BIPOC respondents are over-indexing for how important it is. So they're telling us, hey, pay attention, help us out here, get more people in more senior positions, get more diversity in here, and make it show up at more senior positions. So I think we can take that as pretty good prescriptive what needs to have happen so that we can change. The next quote here is, I think, demonstrative of kind of what happens also when BIPOC folks are in senior levels. This quote was from a mid-level participant who was talking about some of the changes that they have brought to the organization and some of the emotional work that we ask BIPOC folks to bring to our organization. So we now have a dedicated culture leadership team that works with executive leaders to shape DEI&B at our agency. We have established 6 committees to advance DEI&B, including elevating BIPOC talent, training managers, hiring representative talent, reflecting DEI&B in our work, community support, and helping our ERGs with allyship training and resources. So when we get those amazing BIPOC folks in leadership positions, they are also doing a tremendous amount of emotional work to help grow our entire agency there. I think it is demonstrative of what's happening. I think this is also a chance for all of us to lean in and learn from what others are doing, to lean on each other as we are continuing on this journey, as we're continuing to try new things out, and take different roads and avenues of what to do. I am personally just super inspired by all of these activities that really help you think through the entire spectrum of what we can do to help our partners inside, our BIPOC and our white partners inside, to be more inclusive. Okay, number 4. Just goes right on the heels of that, right? We have great positive intent. So we might have 6 committees, and I'm going to assume that participant, that they are making some impact. But what we're seeing right now is that we have started a journey. We have positive intent, and we hear all the stories of all the things that we are doing. We hear all the news of the things we are doing to help make a more inclusive environment. We are not yet hitting the mark on the real impact for all of our employees, and especially our BIPOC employees. So I just want to take a moment and say, let's not stop with the positive intent. We need to continue positive intent, but let's really think through the actual impact of what we're doing. So numbers, metrics, they're naturally where we start, right? We've got to have something to measure against. If you've got it to measure against, you make sure you don't lose sight of it. We've all got our KPIs, right? It's a good place to start, but we really have to go beyond demographics and think about lived experiences. Think about, what is it really like to work in our company? How are we helping? What are we doing differently? How are we onboarding differently? All of those things, so that it's not just about ticking a box on a KPI on hiring and recruiting. It's really about creating a culture where things feel different. Because what the data shows us right now is that overall, our BIPOC respondents feel less supported and less valued than our white colleagues do. That data is in there. We're going to show it on the next slide. Absolutely not the same experience. And the impact of that is that they can't bring their whole self. If they don't feel the value, they are not willing to step out and take a chance and share that idea that might be breakthrough, share that next thing that can happen. Here is the line: not feeling valued can silence BIPOC voices.
Sarah, I just want to jump in because I think what always stuck out to me was that line there that says even held back. They feel even held back by their identity. And so I think if you're reading this and you're not sure, okay, I have positive intent, is my impact landing? You know, a starting point might be thinking about how you're retaining BIPOC talent and looking there. If you're not able to maybe get some of that feedback or as truthful feedback that you're hoping for, you know, looking at that number of retention could be an indicator of how that impact is landing for BIPOC talent within your workplaces.
Thank you, my friend. All right. Here's the stat that is hard for me to look at, but is the reality. So this question was specifically about, do you feel that your race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic background have prevented you from thriving in your organization? 18% of BIPOC respondents said yes. And that is not the same as white respondents, where white respondents don't feel that way. So that's a problem. And because of that feeling, our BIPOC respondents also told us they are less likely to feel that their unique skills, perspectives, and talents are valued or used in the workplace. So that's also not good. And you can see how if you feel undervalued, you may not even share all of those talents. So they're not even seen. I'm just going to pause for a minute, Michaela. Okay. Yeah, we have work to do. I don't want us to get down on this data, but I do want to acknowledge this is true. And like Michaela said at the beginning, we had so many participants who were who told us how they feel. And that is a gift to us right now. We have this information to do something with. And it is really insightful. It really tells us a lot about what is going on. So this wraps it up. And this tells us why and where it hits all of us. If it doesn't just hit us in the hearts, this is where it hits us in our bottom line. This is where it hits us in our ability to make money, our ability to get new clients, our ability to help our clients grow. Because the job that we have is we are representing brands out in the world, and that world doesn't look like what's inside of us. So the difference in that lived experience of BIPOC employees and our slow growth and diversity in the workforce is going to weaken our ability to create work that represents the consumer population. I'm going to try to say this the way I heard Kelly say it, and it really stuck with me. But we want to live in a world where the people making the work look like the people we're making the work for, because that's where authenticity is. So that's our real goal here. We want to be able to match that and create a lived experience and an environment inside our companies so that we can make that amazing work and live out that dream that we have. Let's see. Sorry, did I hit all of those, Michaela? I was making sure I hit all the.
You absolutely did. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Sarah. And before we bring Kelly on to share more about what this means to the BrandLab and in some ways, like we said, that as individuals and collectively, we can take some action and how the BrandLab can help to support that. Let's open it up for any questions that folks had about those key insights before we get into this next portion. So anything in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, myself, Sarah, and Kelly can all help to answer some questions here.
And also feel free to come off mute and just celebrate Sarah and her passion in presenting these findings as well. I'm so appreciative of the work of Michaela and Sarah and the entire team working on the state of the industry. But Sarah, I'll say that you continue to light a little extra fire as well. And I see you and I appreciate it.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to say to all my partners who are on the call listening to me, I am fueled by them. Adam, you said it in the chat. We need to create brave spaces where all of us can continue to push each other and grow. So thank you for being here. And thank you for what I know is coming next, because that is the hope and the action that we take.
Sarah, thank you.
No worries. I know there was an echo there, but we absolutely want to hear the question. If you want to put it in chat, or if you think the echo is fixed, either way, definitely want to make the space to hear that question.
Morocco, you're on mute.
I think she's trying to fix the echo.
How about now?
Oh, no.
I'll type it.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Now you mute it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we're trying to share technology in the room and it's not cooperating with us. I just want to say thank you. I'm in my feels a little bit right now, because when I think about both being a leader of our BIPOC talent and being also in that category, you know, this idea of reflecting, you know, even at my level, issues of being held back, you know, how does my identity hold me back in my career, or where am I hesitant to bring my full self to work? And it's such an interesting, you know, switching that on that goal of helping organize. I guess my question that comes out of that is, that's a skill that can be built as far as strengthening our ability to create work that reflects the customers that we serve. And so I'm curious if you're already starting to think about, you know, maybe via fearless workshops or other things, you know, how do we build those skills in our organizations where we have the influence, the power to build and design products.
I can come off mute and answer that. So I would say a few things. One, standing, sitting, reflecting on the data to fully understand, right? Consuming with a desire to understand is step one. Step two is then to start to move into action. And so some of the things that we're going to talk about on the next couple of slides are some of our recommendations on how to move into action. And you're absolutely spot on, right? What is the BrandLab's piece in this? And the answer to that is, I think the BrandLab has a large piece in this. The why we do the work that we do is to support our partners in this work. And so I think it's an amazing tee up to moving into some of those pieces. The other thing I'm going to say is, we can't do it all, right? We at the BrandLab can't do it all. You as a leader in your organization can't do it all. And so I just want to name that, and also give all of us the reminder of, let's do what we can. Let's make action and impact where we can. And let's do this in incremental waves. Because what I personally saw in the sort of the wake of 2020, with the murder of George Floyd, with the pandemic, everyone's seeing so much more than I think they had generally realized previously about some of the disparities and inequalities. It felt like, gosh, I got to do it all. And so then there was this fire, and then that fire burned out really fast. And the work that we're looking to do is true radical change. And so to be able to do that, there's also some pacing and some spacing. And so I would say all of those pieces, as we transition into what does this mean to the BrandLab, and how the BrandLab can show up and support and walk this journey with all of you as partners as well. And so I will use that as my segue into what this means to the BrandLab. and really setting it up as there were 5 key insights within the survey. When we looked at all of the data, and there was a lot, we heard from 1,000 respondents. This is the largest piece of data we have received as the BrandLab. There was a lot of different things we could pull from, right? We pulled out the 5 largest key insights to share with all of you. And even at the BrandLab, we can't do it all. And so we said, okay, as we as an organization look at our core, our mission, the work that we do, and the how we do our work, which is tied to our pillars, which I'll share with you, we can't tackle all 5 of these things. But what we can tackle is 3 key areas. And so these are the 3 key areas that we at the BrandLab are going to focus on. These are the 3 key areas that we want to partner with all of you on, because none of us can do this work alone, but in community, we can make a larger impact. And so the first is, number 1, stagnating diversity, right? What that means is, and Sarah talked to this, the marketing and advertising industry is not nearly as diverse as the general population. And it's not showing the overall growth in diversity. There are diversity stats that talk about the new majority and the shifting of what it looks like as far as diversity in this country. And the reality is the diversity in this country is happening faster than it was predicted. I'm here for it. I think that's fantastic. But also, we're not seeing that level of speed up happening in this profession. We're seeing that the diversity in the marketing and advertising profession is stagnating. There's some change, there's some influx, but it's not moving in the same speed as the general population. So there's work to do there, and we'll talk about how we can do that work together in community. The second key takeaway is that there are divergent experiences between BIPOC and white employees, and that these individuals have different lived-in experiences in the workplace. Now, I want to be really clear about my interpretation of this, right? I'm not saying, please treat everyone the same. That's not at all what I'm saying, but I am saying that as people living in community, people working in organizations, as leaders, as peers, our job is to see people for who they are and to be in community and to work with them in a way in which they can have a positive lived experience. So the divergent experiences is about, I don't feel valued, heard, seen, supported, encouraged, uplifted in the same way as my non-BIPOC employee teammates, right? That's what we're talking about, these divergent experiences. The third key takeaway is this idea of intent versus impact, and the fact that there's still a significant gap between positive intentions of organizations, right? I have this intention to do this thing. I'm going to put practices, strategies in place to, because my intention is to make change. And we're looking at that on one side in comparison to, but the real impact on employees with a focus on BIPOC employees isn't there. So there's still a gap between the intention of what's happening inside of organizations and the real impact on people working inside of those organizations. So intent versus impact. This is a big one. I mean, all of these are really big, but this one of organizations are putting time and dollars and energy into this work, but it's not hitting. It's not making an impact. So how can we move and adjust those efforts in a way in which there can be true impact, which I think could make a big difference in this profession. And so I will share with all of you that this year's Fearless Conference, which will be taking place on Thursday, May 2nd, is going to center on this third key takeaway, moving from intent to impact, because this is a great opportunity that we all can learn and think about how this comes to life and what this means across all areas of the organization. It's not just in one area, but moving from intent to impact in places like the hiring process, in the review process, in check-in progress, in updates, in onboarding across the organization. Moving from intent to impact, that's a place we can make we can collectively make an impact. So those are the three areas the BrandLab is really looking to walk with you all in as we make radical change together. So then on the next slide, looking at the BrandLab and the how we do the work that we do to support all of you and how it makes sense as it relates to our programs. So the BrandLab's mission is to change the face and the voice of the marketing and advertising profession. How we fulfill our mission is through 4 pillars. Our 4 pillars are, if you look with me on this beautiful pyramid that was created by our friends at Berkeley, starting with a foundation of equity. Equity is our largest pillar, and the reason it's our largest pillar is because this is so incredibly important as foundation to the work that we do. If we fulfill our other 3 pillars, but equity does not exist in this profession for the participants we serve and within the content that goes out into the population through the marketing content created by marketing and advertising professionals, we're missing the mark, and our foundation isn't solid, everything else will fall. So equity is the foundation of our work. It's our largest pillar where we can have the largest impact. We then move into pillar 2, which is exposure. Exposure is where we look to expose 1,500 young people each year who are ages 15 to 25 and self-identify as BIPOC. We look to expose these young people to marketing and advertising as a profession. It's another really, really large pillar for us, not quite as big as equity, but a really large pillar. We then build on exposure as we move into pillar 3, access. From an access perspective, this is where we provide access to hands-on opportunities to learn and grow, and as I like to say, fall in love with the marketing and advertising profession. The top of our pyramid, our top number 4 pillar is opportunity. Opportunity is where we can fulfill our vision of people of color launching and sustaining careers inside of workplaces and inclusivity and belonging. I pause there to say it's not just about launching those careers, but it's also about sustaining. So as we bring additional diverse individuals into organizations, the ability to sustain, the ability for them to want to stay in the organizations in this profession means they have to be able to bring their whole selves. They have to be able to bring their unique perspectives, background experiences, races, ethnicities, everything that makes them them, for them to want to not only launch their career in this profession, but sustain their career in this profession. So when we look at these 4 pillars, in addition to talking about the 4 pillars and talking about the fact that how many people's lives we impact with each pillar as we go up this pyramid, I also want to name the fact that equity is our foundation. It's where we start. Equity, as you can see, as the red line goes all the way up the pyramid here, equity is throughout, because the work we have to do to make radical change is creating and introducing equity in all the pieces, everything that we do. On the far right here, then, you see all of the BrandLab programming and how it aligns back into our 4 pillars. So all of our programming is tied into the how we fulfill our mission through our 4 pillars. The very first program on purpose that we document as a part of our equity programming is State of the Industry. It's this work right here. I truly believe the things that are important to us, we will track, we will measure, we'll understand where we made missteps, we'll understand where additional areas of opportunities exist, we will optimize, and we will keep moving forward. And so we do the State of the Industry work on a biannual basis with the intention of knowing where we've been, where we are, and where we need to get to. That's part of our equity programming. The next component of our equity program is our fearless work. So our fearless work is our DEI&B trainings that we do. Our DEI&B work that we've named Fearless. Now, I'm a 20-year marketer. I love a good brand name. Fearless is a fantastic brand name from my perspective. And on the flip side, I don't think DEI&B work is at all about being fearless, but instead it's about showing up courageously and saying, gosh, I don't know it all. I have not arrived on my DEI&B journey yet, because the reality is none of us have arrived, none of us will arrive. And if and when we ever think we've arrived, gosh, we need to start over. Right. And so it's about courageously showing up, sometimes showing up scared, sometimes showing up nervous and saying, gosh, I hope I don't offend, or I say the right thing, or gosh, should I have already known this and I didn't, but still showing up. And so our fearless workshops are workshops that we do in conjunction with and on behalf of all of our partners. We have created our series of 7 different fearless workshops where we go inside of organizations and we create these fearless, truly courageous conversations inside of organizations. We also have a fearless conference that I referenced. This year's conference is going to center on moving from positive intention to real impact. That happens on May 2nd. It always happens on the first Thursday of May. So go ahead, take a minute, put a reoccurring reminder on your calendar, block out the first Thursday of May every year, and please show up for the Fearless Conference so we can learn and grow together in community. When we move from equity into exposure, that's where, like I said, we're looking to expose young people. And truly what we're looking to do is to spark their interest in marketing and advertising as a career option. I went to college, I went to graduate school, I never knew anything about marketing. My interest was sparked later in life before I came into the profession. And yes, I just aged myself because I said I've been in the profession 20 years and I didn't learn in college. There we go. But the reality is, if we can make an impact and we can spark excitement in young people as early as age 15, gosh, we're on our way to bringing more people into this profession at an earlier age. Some of the young people of the 1,500 we expose each year are going to say, you know, thanks for that opportunity. Marketing isn't quite for me. I want to go do something else. That is still a win. The reason that's still a win is because we expose them to the fact that there's more out there, and we want to help them find their joy somewhere else. For the young people that are like, yeah, I love this profession, I want to keep going, we move them into access, where we provide access to hands-on opportunities through our learning labs, which are every other month opportunity to go deep into the different aspects of marketing and advertising. Now, you all know this is a really diverse profession in the number of roles in this profession, right? There are so many different roles in the marketing and advertising profession. The aim of learning labs is to go deep into the different roles on an ongoing basis. So over years, young people can have had exposure and access to working in different aspects of marketing and advertising so that they can find their joy, so that they can fall in love. We also have our college internship program. Our college internship program is unique in a few different ways. 2 ways that I think are incredibly important, especially as we talk about what we heard, what we learned from the State of the Industry results. First and foremost, our college internship is designed so that every young person that walks into one of our partner organizations, where we know, right, the marketing and advertising profession is 90% white, less than 10% BIPOC in the Midwest. Every single intern that walks into one of our partner organizations walks in a cohort. They walk in with at least one other person who walks in beside them, another person who has some shared lived experiences of being part of the BrandLab internship, a shared lived experience of being a college student, a shared lived experience as self-identifying as BIPOC. That helps to create a sense of inclusion and ideally a sense of belonging as well. The other really key piece for us here with our college internship is the professional development that we provide at the beginning of the internship and throughout. Because when we look at the starting line for the young people who we serve at the BrandLab, that starting line doesn't always look the same for those individuals as it does for other people entering the industry. So providing additional professional development to really give them a leg up in that starting line is incredibly important. At the top of our pyramid in the opportunity pillar, as we look to launch and sustain careers for the young people who we serve, we have a college scholarship that goes beyond tuition support and really is designed to meet young people where they're at to break down barriers to college education. The next program is our Career Ignition program. This is a program designed to stand in the gap between college graduation and first job. It's a 3-month program in which we provide professional development as it relates to the key things that help young people launch their careers, right? So resume writing, setting up their LinkedIn profile, how to do informational interviews, negotiating their first role, those types of pieces. It also includes networking opportunities for the young people in this program who are almost college graduates to meet our partners who are aligned with the mission of the BrandLab and are hiring. And it also includes a mentorship component as well. The last program, please, if you're not today, be aware that we have a job board on the BrandLab's website. This is a free self-service job board. And why it's important, why I talk about the job board in every conversation I have, is our job board is designed to support our participants and our alumni to find jobs inside of organizations that are aligned with the mission of the BrandLab, right? Not just looking anywhere, but looking inside of organizations that are aligned with the mission of the BrandLab to change the face and the voice of the marketing and advertising profession. For our partners, what it provides is access to career-ready, educated marketing and advertising professionals who are here and ready to bring their whole selves to this profession. It's absolutely a win-win. So here is not only our 4 pillars, also our programming. And again, as I said, we can't do it all, but I am so proud of the work we can do to align with and to answer 3 of the 5 key findings from this year's State of the Industry work. Any questions with any of this before we move into some additional actionable insights, some additional actionable things that we can all start to do tomorrow to make impact? Okay, let's go ahead and continue. So as we look at the call to action, what are the things that each of us can do from where we are to make an impact? First and foremost, consider drafting a DEI&B strategic framework, right? When I think about the framework, I think about the fact that I don't want there to be an organizational strategy and framework and then a DEI&B strategy and framework over here. Consider drafting a DEI&B framework that's a part of your strategic plan and vision for your organization, and include in that framework your DEI&B goals, the responsible parties, the timelines, the measurable metrics, for success, and also resources that are required. Make sure that you have, where are we looking to go? Where are we today? And how will we know if we got there? The second call to action is to ensure that all DEI&B efforts are shared with staff on a regular basis. This is important for so many different components, but as we heard from, our results, as we heard from specific qualitative feedback, it's hard to understand what's happening if we don't understand what's happening. Right? If the communication's not there starts to be a breakdown of maybe what the vision is, what the strategy is, right? The intention and the actual impact. There's also a feeling of, I guess it's not important anymore because we don't talk about it anymore, right? And so ensuring that there's regular conversations so that there's greater transparency on, we've tried these things and they're working, or we've tried these things and you know what, they're not. That transparency of what's working and what's not working is incredibly important, along with accountability of, if it's not working, what are we going to do about it? And thought sharing with ideas, right? So here's some of the things that are working or some of the things that we're planning to do, and crowdsourcing within your organization ideas and feedback on, gosh, that's a great intention. Here's how that's going to land from an impact perspective. The third piece is create and track goals towards hiring and retaining BIPOC talent. The things that are important to us, we're going to track, we're going to measure, and we're going to optimize. So ensure that you have goals. And I'm not saying wherever you're starting today, have a goal of increasing 100% or 50%, maybe not even 25%, but what's a realistic goal that feels like a stretch and also feels obtainable. And then don't forget to share that progress, the good and the bad, regularly with your teams for that transparency and accountability. The next piece, evaluate your hiring process. Evaluate your hiring process from a DEI&B lens. Ensure that the job descriptions, the interview questions, all of the pieces that go into your hiring process are equitable. Think about it this way. What we know, there's research that will show if individuals don't feel as though, gosh, they check every single bullet point, every single box, they're less likely to apply. So look at the job descriptions with the lens of what are the most important aspects of this role that someone has to walk in with, or they can't be successful? What are those most important skills and pieces of that job description? And what are the things that we can train for that don't need to sit on that job description? We can train for those if we have a person that has the core competencies of the role and is ready to come in and be a self-starter. The next one on this slide is provide space for people to share. I almost would put a period right there, right? Provide space for people to share their experiences without any type of concern of what will happen to them if they share. If they share, gosh, I don't really feel like this organization is supporting me, or like I can bring my full self, or I can bring up unique, different perspectives. I feel like I just have to get along. I just have to say yes. Sometimes I feel like, gosh, I have to put a mask on to show up at work because otherwise I'm going to stand out too far. Create space for people to share their real feelings. And that's not going to happen overnight, right? Some of it as leaders is creating those safe spaces by you sharing some of the vulnerable truths of how you feel. Some of the courageously, gosh, I just don't know. Or I'm embarrassed that I'm gonna say the wrong thing, or I don't know what to do here. That starts to create an environment of the sharing that is so important in this work. Okay. So on the next slide then, as we look at some additional calls to action, breaking out specifically to our BIPOC readers of this insight. Looking to identify the places and spaces where you can share how things are going, both from a good and bad perspective and how they're impacting you. As we said, I'm so honored that the BrandLab is one of the safe spaces, and so honored that people shared so honestly, openly with us in the state of the industry work. We at the BrandLab want to continue to facilitate these conversations, to continue to make space. The question is, where are those other spaces? And how can you manage up, manage around, and manage down to continue to make those spaces as well? And also, so important, remember it's not your job to speak for all BIPOC cultures, not even your job to speak for all other people who are the exact same race or ethnicity as you. It's not your job to speak for all people in your gender or any other aspect of what makes you you. It's an unfair ask, and it's not your job to speak on behalf of. And I think sometimes it's important that we remind people of that. To our leaders, be intentional in visibly living out your mission and values in a way that employees can observe, right? How are you showing up in the workplace to live out the mission and values that we all say are important, right? We have mission and values of our organizations. And as we bring our DEI&B strategies to the core of our strategic plans and missions, how are you living it out as a leader? And for all of us, assess how your workplace or team has been successful or unsuccessful of creating a sense of belonging. Offer DEI&B trainings for employees and leadership. Assess your organization to decide, is this something that should be combined training time? Or do we need to create some additional safe spaces by breaking out the groups of who receives the training and who can have those conversations in community? And further down the path, then we're going to bring everybody together. Create strategic goals, maybe even a task force for dedicated resources to help you increase diversity in leadership positions. So there's people in leadership positions because what we see, we believe we could obtain. Ensure your organization is measuring and tracking BIPOC employee retention and promotion rates. Not just the hiring, not just bringing people in, but again, the sustaining individuals in your organization and in this profession. If you haven't yet, and/or if you haven't recently, conduct a pay equity study. Look at pay rates across the organization and find any salary disparities among employees. Right, this is one I'm specifically looking at it from a race and ethnicity perspective as the BrandLab, but also look at gender. Look at all of the different factors that are so important across pay bands. And then understand and share with your team and clients the impact and importance of having diverse perspectives, not only on your team, but also for the work. I always talk about it's so important to think about the diversity and diversifying this profession that I love, both from a heart perspective of it's the right thing to do. Gosh, it's been really hard to be an only for all of these years in this profession doing the work that I love. It also makes sense from a head perspective. Diverse organizations, diverse teams are more innovative and drive higher profits. There's research to back that. It makes sense to do this work both from a heart and a head perspective. Okay. Next slide. So, what are some ways you can join and walk alongside us in this work? We wanted to make it a 1, 2, 3 step. I love things in threes. First and foremost, the first step that you can take tomorrow is to dive into the report, dive into the state of the industry research, and gain a comprehensive understanding of the current state of our profession. You maybe already read it. I'll tell you what, I've read it lots of times. I read the data. I was in a lot of different conversations as we were collecting the data, as we were documenting the data. I go back and read it. We all need to go back and read it again so that we really can understand, read with a sense of and a desire to learn. Or as I like to say, please read with a growth mindset. Step 2, reflect on the actions that you personally want to take and that your organization needs to take or your team can take to make meaningful change. We can't do it all, but what's the impact that you personally, your organization or your team can take to make an impact? And step 3, put your reflections into purposeful action. If you're looking for any guidance on this, gosh, I would love to be part of those conversations. Our team would love to be part of those conversations. But as a community, we have to do this work together. Have conversations with other advertising agencies, with other corporate marketing departments. Have conversations and understand what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you within our peer groups, so that we can continue to have these conversations and learn and grow in community together. Okay, I think we are right at time. We didn't have a lot of time for questions today, and I apologize for that. But gosh, I appreciated having you all on this call with us. And I would love to invite anyone that does have questions, does have feedback, things that you want to talk about, please send us an email. We have a dedicated email address that was set up for our State of the Industry findings. It is SOTI, State of the Industry, at thebrandlab.com. And I'll go ahead and throw it here in chat as well. I said thebrandlab.com. I meant thebrandlab.org. Please feel free to send us an email. We will respond to all of those individual emails as well. Thank you for being with us late in the day on a Tuesday afternoon. And we look forward to continuing to partner with all of you. Thank you so much.